Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 39. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. And Dave, it was an eventful Tuesday. Usually Tuesdays are, generally speaking, relatively speaking, calmer day of the week. A little Mike Tomlin press conference, little workout from Aaron Wilson tweet, and that's kind of the day. Yesterday, not one of those days, one of the most important and eventful Mike Tomlin press conferences he's had this season. Trades galore across the NFL. We got roster moves. We got a ton to talk about today, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And the players, there were no media sessions with the players on this Tuesday after not having one on Monday either. So you thought it might be, we all knew and looking forward to the Mike Tomlin press conference and thinking that was going to be eventful, but there were a lot of, you'd swear it was the trade deadline as well too, the way the moves kept coming in, and obviously several transactions, not only, around the league as well too. So we got a lot to recap today.
Let's talk about some housekeeping first and some roster moves that's going to impact injuries. And there's going to be some other, I think, moves here coming probably today as Pittsburgh will round out their 53-man roster and a couple of open spots on the practice squad. Steelers making a roster move since our last podcast. They waived from the 53-man roster outside linebacker Ade Ogundeji, who had been signed to the 53 prior to this Raiders game as some outside linebacker depth behind TJ Watt, Jeremiah Moon, with the injuries to Nick Herbig, to Marvin Leal, and Alex Highsmith. And so I interpret that as a sign that Highsmith will have a good chance to play this weekend against the Jets. We'll see. We'll talk about what Mike Tomlin had to say from an injury standpoint shortly. And we'll also see if Ogundeji just gets re-signed back to the practice squad. Also, a wide receiver shuffle on the practice squad, the team releasing Trey Jenkins from the practice squad. He'd spent the summer in training camp with the team. It looked pretty decent overall, but he was released to make room for Lance McCutcheon, who's got a little bit of NFL experience under his belt. So not that it's the top story of the day, but Dave, your thoughts on the roster move there and releasing Ogundeji?
And then also Jacoby Windman claimed off of the practice squad, signed off of the practice squad by the Carolina Panthers. So that probably will open up that spot for Ade, right? Probably makes sense to go that route. So, really, we'll see what they do with this open roster spot at this time. Could go a lot of different directions there, I guess. We'll have to see if anybody's practice window maybe gets opened up today, coming off of IR or something like that. Might be something to watch out for as well. But obviously not done with transactions the rest of the week.
Sure. Those players that are eligible to have the window opened up are Dylan Cook, who's been eligible for a couple weeks. And so that foot injury has been more than a minimum 4-week kind of thing. And also Tyler Matakevich with that hamstring injury he suffered it late in that week 2 win over Denver. He could have that window open. Don't know if he will, but that is a possibility. And so we'll watch for that. All right, Dave, from an injury standpoint, before we get into the meat of the press conference from Mike Tomlin and quarterback and all those kinds of things, Mike Tomlin outlining the injury situation, ruling out a couple of players already for this Jets game, ruled out Zach Frazier with that left ankle injury. The good news is it appears to be, relatively speaking, minor. Week to week is how Tomlin couched it. There was a report from Jordan Schultz on Monday that also used that language, week to week, no structural damage to that ankle for Zach Frazier. So hopefully won't be an extended absence. Nick Herbig still out with a hamstring, according to Tomlin, and he's leaving the light on for Cordero Patterson, DeMonte Casey, and Tomlin says he's optimistic that Alex Highsmith will return after aggravating that groin injury in that Week 3 win over the Chargers.
Yeah, it'd be great for them to get Alex Highsmith back this week if that indeed ends up being the case. And the fact that Mike Tomlin used the word optimistic, that's a positive sign. I think towards the end of the week there, Highsmith was doing something in practice. So definitely something to watch there. The fact that he ruled out Zach Frazier for this week with the ankle injury, let you know that it's at least severe enough that they knew he's going to automatically go ahead and miss this coming week's game. And, with this being a couple of weeks ahead of the bye, let's see, you got a Sunday night game against the Jets, and then you have a Monday night game against the Giants, and then you have the bye week after that. I'm not going to. I only play doctor on Twitter, not on podcast. Well, I do sometimes on podcast, but
groin injuries though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, and this is the way I told Dave Weekly on my interview with him yesterday. I wouldn't be shocked if Frazier missed not only the game against the Jets but the Giants as well, and then that gives them the bye week, another week of recovery there, and then for him to be back potentially after the bye. Now, obviously, he could turn around and get healthy enough to play in the game against the Giants. But I would all I'm saying is just be prepared for potentially Frazier to miss that game against the Giants as well, and then come back after the bye. And hopefully I'm wrong, because they could definitely use him back in this lineup.
Sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. The most likely scenario when you talk about Tomlin ruling a guy out on a Tuesday, generally that means it's going to be at least 2 weeks to be able to return. Think about how Nick Herbig got ruled out last Tuesday, didn't play, already ruled out for this game as well. So that's probably the most likely scenario. But Zach Frazier, as tough as they come, we'll see what happens. But the good news is, relatively speaking, that this is not going to be a months-long absence, just a weeks-long absence.
Right. Shouldn't see him go to IR or anything like that. And, he'll be back. It's just a matter of when. I would think at worst, probably after the bye.
Mm-hmm. And Mike Tomlin confirmed that Ryan McCollum will be the team's starting center in his place until Frazier returns. All right, Dave, not to bury the lead here, the quarterback situation, which we talked about extensively on Monday's show and during the Monday live stream, it really was the number one question. How would Mike Tomlin handle the quarterback situation? Russell was healthy. The rust was largely knocked off. It was a football decision. Would he say that Russ will start? Would he say that Fields will start? Well, he took door number 3, and you had mentioned this, I think, before the press conference on Monday, that maybe he would do a classic Tomlin thing and not give you a straight answer, although to me, the lack of a straight answer really gives you an answer. But he's saying that Russ is in consideration, and a decision on a quarterback will get made sometime before game time. So no official declaration from Tomlin. What do you make of all that Mike Tomlin had to say?
I wasn't shocked. He left himself at least some wiggle room. I know there was a report like 5 minutes before the press conference started from Tom Pelissero saying Russell Wilson in line to start. You got to be careful with that. And then the way Mike Tomlin, I saw several people tweeting out that Mike Tomlin's benched Justin Fields. Well, technically, he did not say that. He did not say that, Russell Wilson's definitely going to start. He left himself enough wiggle room here, just like I kind of imagined that he might go down that road. And but it does sound like, and he did not say, he was asked, when we roll out the ball out there, I haven't decided yet who's going to take the first reps. And he's leaving a little bit of mystery here. And I don't have a problem with that overall. Look, the Jets anyway are going to have to prepare for both these quarterbacks this week. Even if Russell Wilson starts, which I think, and you probably agree, seems to be trending in that direction. I would not be shocked to see some Justin Fields on the field for handful of plays, situational type packages like that. I thought more of the beef of or the beef of what Mike Tomlin was trying to say. He was asked, what does Justin Fields need to do better to be named the starter? And he says, Justin has been really good, and we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. this is a competitive league, man. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team, and we got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what Justin has done or has not done. Justin has been an asset to us. Last week, for example, his ability to utilize his legs by design and by ad lib was a significant component of that game. Appreciate, on and on from there. But I think that's where your real answer to this decision lies. That okay, Justin's been okay. Can we do better? Mm-hmm. And we've got a guy that's got a lot of experience here. And Mike Tomlin said, we got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play. So we're going to potentially explore those things. So I view this as just, and the way I thought it might play out. And I think even though you think that the team, or thought that the team should potentially stay with Justin Fields one more week. I think they want to explore and see if they can get more out of this offense, especially the passing game specifically, to push the football down the field. And I think that in totality, when you look at the tape, especially from the last couple of weeks specifically, that there were some plays that Justin Fields left on the field, and they want to see if they can unlock another level to this offense through the passing game, with potentially losing the X factor. Mike Tomlin was specific in that, and what Justin Fields gives you with his mobility. And we've talked a lot about that, obviously through the first 6 weeks of the season here. And I think this is an exploration to see what they have in Russell Wilson, to see if they can maybe make this offense even, or a lot better, specifically in the passing game and specifically in the downfield passing game. Something that, I've talked about, wondering if could be the case here.
I'll read off the quote that I think is the most important part from Tomlin in terms of what he's publicly saying about the quarterback situation and who's going to start this weekend. Referring to Russ, he says, quote, "He is in consideration this week. We'll see where that leads us. Both guys at the quarterback position are scheduled to work tomorrow, and we'll just walk it day by day, all geared towards putting ourselves in the best position to win the football game." And quote, did later confirm that Russ will get first team reps during practice at some point in some form or fashion. Didn't have exact detail on how that would get split up. So let's kind of reset and start here. As you said, and you're correct, Tomlin did not explicitly say that Wilson is starting and Fields has been benched, but based on all the things he said, based on the quote I just read off, we can all agree. Well, maybe let me just ask: Do you think there was any scenario in which Justin Fields starts against the Jets on Sunday night?
Real quick, this is what you put out there on October 14th. You wrote, "Can't hide from the quarterback decision in tomorrow's presser. Russ is healthy. Practice. He's going to have to name a starter for the Jets." And you wrote, "My guess he goes with Russ." And I quote tweeted you. I said, "I wonder if we're going to let practice and the totality of that practice guide our decision as to who gives us the best chance to secure victory inside the stadium." I guess you're asking me what percentage of chance, or is there any chance that Justin Fields starts this game?
Yeah, is this Tomlin truly not knowing who he's going to start, or is Tomlin just trying to take the door number 3? And I think you're ghostwriting for Tomlin's pressers at this point, so I'm going to work on investigating that.
I've had years of practice now of listening to him along these lines. I think he just I think in his head he wants to start Russ. I think his intention is to start Russell Wilson. I think he just wants practice to confirm that he should start Russell Wilson this week. He just wants to see a little bit more of the in-helmet stuff and the building off of whatever and the amount of whatever he did last week. So that's why I think he left himself a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to that.
Are you bothered that he didn't outright name a starter? Because I am, and I know it's media stuff, and I think part of the reason is he's trying to play some of the games of not letting the Jets know exactly who to prepare for, because stylistically they're two different quarterbacks. I think there's kind of a gamesmanship element to it. To me, the starting quarterback should always be known. Like, I think it's just a good way to lead with confidence, lead with strength. This is our guy. Here's who we're starting. We're going to go into stadiums and we're going to win. And the team is going to follow suit. And you're not going to have the media questions of, well, who's going to start and who do you want to start? And everyone's kind of walking on eggshells and tiptoeing because they don't know exactly how to talk about the quarterback situation if you're leaving it up in the air, and we'll see what happens. And participation of practice will be our guide and all that kind of stuff. So I know ultimately when the ball's kicked off on Sunday night, it's not going to matter really at all. But I dislike the approach of this mealy mouth. Yeah, we'll see, guys, because I think we all know at this point it's going to be Russell Wilson. So just come out and say it's going to be Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but I don't know how much gamemanship's in there. What if we get to Sunday night and the first play they want to run a read option or something? It just and Justin Fields technically gets the start, but he comes out. I'm throwing ludicrous type stuff out there, but I think it might be multi-layered. I do think in his head he wants. I'm not so much concerned about that. It will be interesting. I think you hit on a good point though. That how do the players address it this week?
It's hard. It's hard for them to talk about it because they don't want to say, definitively what's happening, because maybe they're not even 100% sure, but they're going to be asked. And I know even if Russell had been named the starter, they're going to be asked about that and their thoughts. But it's a position from weakness to me to kind of leave it so uncertain when I get maybe you want to see Wilson in practice some, but you know who this guy is. He practiced in full last week. He practiced at the end of training camp. Like, he's a veteran guy. This isn't a young guy where you want to evaluate reps in practice. So at this point, what more are you really looking for? He's healthy. He's deemed healthy. Tomlin confirmed that. He looked good last week. So there's nothing else to really watch.
Would you have felt better if he would have phrased it, our intentions are to start Russ this week?
Yeah, I think if he had used the same language he used with Justin Fields, where Justin Fields is preparing to start or Russell Wilson is preparing to start, to use that kind of language is definitive, essentially, to me. And I just would prefer that when it comes to the quarterback position, because it is everything comes top down from ownership to GM to head coach to quarterback. Is kind of the way it comes down, and from quarterback to the rest of the locker room. And I just think at that position, let's lead with strength. Let's lead with, this is our guy, confident in him. The players will fall in line, say, okay, Russ is our guy. We're confident. We're excited. And you go out there and that's what I would have preferred.
Okay. I mean, I get that. I'm less bothered by it than you are, but I understand where you're coming from. And I do think maybe to some degree, he just wants to at least give himself some wiggle room I think he wants to see another week of practice and just have it more of a confirmation bias to him during the week of practice that this is a guy that they should go with.
Tomlin said a decision will come closer to game time. When do you think that would be? It seems to be a lot of the Friday. Tomlin is now doing short Friday interviews and press conferences after practice. Would that be the most likely time in which a starting quarterback is officially named?
Probably, especially if he does have one of those mini Friday afternoon practice sessions.
And then ultimately, is this the right decision? It's kind of what this comes down to. The fan base is, I think, against this, and they wanted Fields to continue to start, and with good reason. They're 4-2. Fields overall over the span has played well, and I think probably surpassed a lot of expectations and taken good care of the football and been a more accurate quarterback than what he's been. So I know you touched on it already and talking about hoping to get more out of the passing game and deep ball and quicker starts, but if you had to explain to Steelers fans why this team and why Tomlin is seemingly going to Russell Wilson, what would be that reason?
I would explain sort of the way that I did in the opening. A, I am on board on this. B, am I 100% convinced that this is going to be the right decision? No, I'm not going to sit here and say, that I can guarantee that things are going to go great, especially in this first appearance on Monday night. But I think that you owe it to yourself and to the offense, especially with what Justin Fields has put on tape in the passing game so far. Now, look, I think we all have to admit that it feels like Justin Fields has been muted to some degree with what they want him to do, right?
When you say muted, is it in his own play or the team?
I feel there's been just so much emphasis on don't turn the ball over, don't make the big mistake going downfield, that I think it has prevented him. I think there have been certain situations where he might have taken, an opportunity to hit it, a guy further down the field and just said, you know what, I'm going to just take the safe route here. Mm-hmm. It has felt like it's been more controlled with him overall. And but then and if that wasn't the case, then there has been opportunities that I think he's missed on the field. I think pretty evident in these last couple of games as well too. I think they want a more experienced. I want to see what this offense looks like with a more experienced guy under center that could potentially maybe give you more autonomy at the line of scrimmage. A guy that's obviously been around the league. Probably should be able to view coverages better and diagnose pre-snap and know where he wants to go with the football, and maybe take more of these shots down the field at the risk of losing the mobility aspect. And no, we're not saying that I'm not saying that Russ has zero mobility, but Mike Tomlin came right out and said he's not, he cannot use his legs like Justin Fields, and probably even as mobile as Russell Wilson has even been at earlier stages in his career, Justin Fields pretty dynamic on the hoof. I just think that they owe it to themselves to see if they can unlock more of this passing game with Russell Wilson. And let's face it, I mean, this team in a lot of metrics. Mike Tomlin also said you and I are losers during the press conference.
Specifically, he did say Dave and Alex.
I think he was talking directly at us.
We can confirm that.
Because he said stats are for losers, but yet he talked about the Aaron Rodgers Hail Marys or whatnot, and do that stat. But anyway, is it the right decision? I mean, the proof will be in the pudding, right? Sure. And I do think it's okay to. Here's the thing that I think most of the fan base is caught up in. Well, we've seen years of the mobile quarterbacks, specifically in a division with Lamar Jackson, and how exciting that is. We also at a stage with this franchise where you want to root and hope that the younger former first round draft pick, that you can unlock him and that be your franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. And on top of it, you're looking at the totality as, man, this team's 4-2 right now. They're a couple of plays away from or a couple of series from being undefeated right now. Even though there have been balls on the ground and mistakes made by the quarterback. Technically, he's only got the one interception. They're at least putting the football in the end zone a few more times this year. The mentality is, man, why are we trying to fix something that most people don't perceive as broken, especially when we're talking about a guy that we all look. I hope for it. We all hope for it that you get this cast off first round draft pick, mobile, new age quarterback that can be the answer for the next X amount of years, as compared to a 30-something-year-old quarterback that even if he plays lights out, how many more years are you potentially going to get out of him? So there's a root for bias ingrained there, especially when you think at totality, 4-2 team. Justin Fields hasn't killed us. Why can't we just continue to see what we can build on from there? So I understand the pushback, and I have understood the pushback, throughout all of this. But I just think that Mike Tomlin and the rest of the coaching staff are looking at this from a totality issue, from what they've seen on tape issue, what they think that they can get out of Russell Wilson to potentially unlock this offense to make it even better, and especially down the field passing plays.
I think with Fields, the issue to me with his game as a passer has been less about turning down some of those chances, which I think have been a problem, but it's been more than that. It's been a lack of accuracy. I think some of the lack of processing, especially these last two games. I don't think he's played as sharply and as consistently in that regard as he did the first, 4 games of the season. And so I think, he's playing, to me, regress some and wane some at a time when Russ is healthy and that decision gets made. And so that's kind of just bad timing on that part when you're playing not quite as sharp as you were earlier in the year. The second that basically the Russ is healthy and the decision time is here. Let me ask you this, though. You talked about, and I agree, I think there's certainly a mantra from Pittsburgh, and really has been the case post-Ben, that play smart, don't turn the ball over. We'll win the game 13-10 with our great defense and special teams and kicker, etc. But won't the same mantra be preached with Russell Wilson? Or do you think they think that Wilson can open up this offense so much that philosophically it'll change to, hey, let's take some chances, let's go ahead and make some big plays?
Yeah, I think they would be more risk adverse. I think I think they maybe view what he can unlock in this offense, both maybe in explosive plays down the field, yards after the catch in situations, as opposed to he might put a ball where it doesn't belong. He might risk it too much and causing there. They think I feel that they think that they can counteract whatever maybe. And obviously, look, if you throw 2 or 3 interceptions in a game, if you turn the football over X amount of times, you're probably not going to win the football game, right? So I guess what I'm saying is they're more apt to be okay with maybe 1 turnover a game, that they could overcome that, especially with that defense of theirs, in lieu of what he can open up with maybe more scoring, more points.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I can buy that overall. I think still philosophically, it's going to be the same core of how Pittsburgh is going to win. I don't know if Wilson's going to open up this offense and to take them to 2 or 3 rungs higher, hopefully another rung higher. I think the calculation for Pittsburgh is, with a 20th ranked scoring offense, Wilson probably at worst can do equivalent to that, and hopefully can lead to a better result and some quicker starts and have more fluidity early in games. And so I think that's maybe their calculation on, statistically, not that, as we said, Tomlin cares about stats, but just from an offensive production standpoint, I think Tomlin's thought is it probably can't be much worse, and hopefully will be better.
Look, you want to talk about a lot of pushback in one game. If they go out against the Jets and put up, 17, 20 points and worse, lose the ball game, boy, there's going to be a lot of heat. People are going to say, see, Justin could have done the same thing. And here we are, especially if Russell Wilson turns the ball over multiple times in this game. Once again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that things are going to go smooth, but I think they at least owe it to themselves to find out if they can have Russell Wilson unlock this offense a little bit more. Byproduct obviously of that is even opening up the running game a little bit more. I do think, though, I mean, look, the way the offensive line has been playing so far, I think the onus needs to be on Russell Wilson in more times than not, trying to get the football out as quicker. And are you running the chance of maybe having a few more sacks in here with Russell Wilson? How many times has Justin Fields been sacked already this year? What is the pace of the sacks for this team so far?
He's been sacked 16 times this season. I think that's going to be about 45 or so for the year if you extrapolate that out. about 45 for the season if he were to start all 17 games.
All right. How much were both those quarterbacks sacked last year? 50 times each, right?
Field sacked 44 times, but that came in 13 starts, so it would have been more had he played all 17 games, had that thumb injury. His sack percentage is down about 1.5 compared to last year.
Okay.
Russ, I'm not quite sure on his numbers.
All right. So, I mean, obviously you can't take, 3 or 4 sacks a game to stack up to 20 yards of lost yardage that way. I do wonder if they think Russell Wilson might be able to help them more on first down overall.
I wonder on play action too, because I still think play action has been weak because they've not sold play action. Well, that's not just on Fields, but I think his play fakes have been pretty poor.
Right. And I do wonder if they can maybe unlock that aspect of the game as well too. I think it's worth the shot to see, at least for a couple of games here, what Russell Wilson. Now look, he's coming at his age and he's already had a couple of instances with this calf. There is part of me that wonders, is he going to try to run away try to escape the pocket on one of these and tweak that calf again? And here we go again for another 5 weeks, especially at his age and especially with him already tweaking this once already. We could get 5 plays into this thing and Justin Fields back under center again, or
by the game itself. Because last time Russ was supposed to start, we got to a Thursday practice and he was done. So I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, we don't know.
Right. I support the decision. Yes, I do. But once again, I'm not, as I had said earlier in the week, I'm not going to sit here and plant the flag here as a hill to die on and say unequivocally this is going to go smashingly great. Look, this all rolls back into my biggest concern, and really, I think so many words, yours as well too, to start this season. And the reason why I had them going, I think 9-8 this season, is I was concerned about the quarterback position in its totality. And I was worried about the overall strength of the wide receiver room. And Russell Wilson's going to be playing with the same set of wide receivers. That aspect isn't going to change with this thing. And one of the variables that has changed also. You've got this offensive line been dinged up throughout the first 6 games of this season as well too, and that's something that you definitely have to consider here. But I do think it's worth a look at Russell Wilson to see if you can unlock this offense more over the next couple of games going into the bye week, and then if he has been unable to do that, then I think you have the golden opportunity during the bye week to say, okay, Russell Wilson's not giving us what we thought we would get out of him. We're going to go back and see if we can build more off of the X factor aspect with Justin Fields, and maybe take the handcuffs off of him a little bit more.
Well, that's the question. Assuming that Wilson does start this week, then how much rope does he get? I think he's going to start for a while. I don't think Tomlin's going to have a super quick hook and be super reactionary to it, because you might be able to play he hasn't played in a while, some rust to knock off, and getting chemistry and all that kind of down. You could go back to Fields at some point later this year, but I think it'll be a while before you get to that point, because I think you're going to give Wilson as many opportunities as possible to win the job or keep the job and do the things that you are putting him in the lineup to do.
I obviously don't think it would happen after all. I don't think it'd be a 1-game hook. I think, you remember you got the bye coming up here in a couple of weeks. So I think you owe it to him at least to give him at least 2 games. And then what does the tape say?
I think even 2 is pretty quick hook for 2 games. I mean, I get the bye element of it, but.
Well, how bad is the bad?
Sure. We don't know.
It's all going to depend what the tape says. I'm not saying that I'm saying at least a minimum though of that. Look, and once again, if we get into if Monday morning you and I are talking about, well, that didn't go well. How much blowback? I mean, there's going to be supreme blowback on Mike Tomlin and this decision. and people are saying, "See, we told you shouldn't have gone that route." And people already worrying about, is the Giants game in question now? And it's just going to get louder and louder, And look, this is a tough game they got coming up,
Really good defense.
Really good defense, as you mentioned there. So, I at its core, do I support the decision? Yes. Am I emphatically willing to say it's going to go smashingly well? Well, no, I can't guarantee that. But I think you owe it to yourself for at least a couple of games to see if Russell Wilson, that experience, just everything that comes along with it, to see if he can give you more than what Justin Fields has in the passing game specifically.
I also wonder, you talk about, well, if Wilson doesn't work out for a couple weeks, however many weeks that is, 2, 3, 4, whatever the number, you go back to Fields, you can. And I know this is down the road and it's just a history thing, but how many teams have had successful playoff runs when they played quarterback roulette throughout the year? It just feels so, it's not conducive to success. I don't know the Super Bowl winning team that has been like, yeah, we changed our quarterbacks 8 times throughout the season and we put it all together and won it all. And does that mean anything really for the here and now? If you get to that point, probably not. But I just get that it's not what stable teams, it's not what winning teams do. It's just consistently change their quarterbacks. So I think with this one, you stick with Wilson probably for the long haul. And yeah, if it gets super bad, then of course you would go back to Justin Fields. But it just, you're in dangerous territory at that point if you're in the quarterback switching 2019, rotating them all the time kind of mode.
I think you roll back to what Mike Tomlin said when he was asked about Justin Fields overall as the core reason of why he's going a direction. He says, this is a competitive league, man. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team, and we've got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things.
Here's my other thought, and I'm still kind of working it out in my head. I may write about this later this week. I know this is a little more theoretical and harder to really prove, and it's less about the football aspect. Do you think Mike Tomlin feels an obligation to Russell Wilson to start him and play him this year? Because Wilson was brought in before the team had any intention of ever trading for Justin Fields. The whole plan was back in March, you sign Wilson, you keep Kenny Pickett, those guys compete, and that would be the battle. Those would be the top 2 in the depth chart, Wilson and Pickett. And only once Pickett wanted out after Wilson was signed and was going to be in pole position, that Fields came in. And I don't think Wilson was explicitly told that you're going to be the starter whenever he got signed, but I think we all knew that's where that was going to end up. And then Wilson, of course, was named the official starter in week 1. This is a guy that's 35 that Tomlin convinced to come in. Wilson had other options, the Giants, the Raiders, and Tomlin was able to sell him on Pittsburgh. He's a free agent after this year. He needs this year to kind of salvage his career in market perception and market value. I know this is all kind of a little artsy and just kind of in my head, but do you think Tomlin is thinking, I sold this guy to come here to Pittsburgh to win together with this guy, and I can't rob him of that opportunity to do what he came here to do, which was to play and start and, do good business for us and do good business for himself. Do you think that's playing a factor? It's hard. Is it possible to prove? But I really think that's playing a factor with Tomlin, where he kind of feels like an obligation to play this guy because of all that he told him back in March at that conference at the dinner of like, hey, let's come in, let's win together. And he doesn't want to go back on his word.
That would fly in the face what he puts out there every other week, though, that I'm going to play the people that give us the best chance to win the ball game in the stadium.
I know, but we also know he's a very loyal guy, especially when it comes, I think, to quarterbacks.
I mean, if Justin had played better, would he still feel that same way?
Sure. No, I get it. If he was killing it.
That's an impossible question, though, for us to answer, though.
I know, but is it? I think it tracks. I mean, because I think just knowing Tomlin and knowing that Russ was supposed to be the guy all along. I mean, again, it's impossible to prove. I know we're kind of getting away from what we usually do, which is focusing on the game and the play. But I do think, in his heart of hearts, I think when it's a tough decision like this between Fields and Wilson, and there is no clear, just stick with Fields, or if Fields was terrible, just go to Russ. It's an obvious point. It's not clear and obvious, the standard that I've talked about before. I don't know. I think there's something there where Tomlin, he's all about football. Like this guy loves football justice. All he does is talk about football justice, which is not, about the X's and O's of it all. This is about the mythology of football and the justice of football, and you get what you're owed and those kinds of things. Whether you agree or not doesn't matter. Tomlin certainly believes in it. At least he says he does. And so I just can't help but think, is there a factor that may not be the main reason, but is a reason and part of Tomlin's thinking about how he's approaching his quarterback decision?
I mean, it's fair, but it's something we're never going to know the answer to. I'll give you even we don't like hypotheticals, but this is a great one that Dave Weekly gave me during the interview yesterday here. And it is one to think about. He asked me, and I drilled it down even further. He asked me point blank if they had beaten the Cowboys, and if this team was 5-1 right now, would Justin Fields be the starter this week? And I drilled it down even further. I said, okay, well, let's do this. Nothing changes in that Dallas game other than the Steelers get the fourth down stop on defense. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Late in that game and win the ball game. I could try to recreate the radio broadcast to add effect, but I'll save the listeners and won't. But what if pass incomplete? The Steelers are going to win this ball game. All right. And then basically all Justin has to come out at that point, right, is probably kneel down, right?
Yep. One kneel down, you win.
All right. So that's the only thing that happens different in that Dallas ball, in that game against the Cowboys, and you come out with a W. And then what happens against the Raiders happens as is.
Mm-hmm.
Is Justin Fields the starter?
It's a great question. I don't know. Again, hypotheticals, as you said, if 4-2 is still 4-2, you're still in a pretty good spot. And so if you're benching Fields at 4-2, I think Tomlin would have still done the same at 5-1.
My assessment was you'd be in the same situation, but
Okay, so we're in agreement. You think
yeah.
Now, what if? Well, another stuff hypothetical. What if they were 6-0? What if there's no bot snap against the Colts? They go kick the game tying field goal, pick six from Minka. Fields doesn't throw the game winning touchdown pass or anything. They're 6-0. Then I don't know. I don't know if Tomlin would have done it at 6-0. I think that's the only thing that would have maybe prevented him from a record standpoint of making a change.
Yeah, I guess how are you going to piece together that game against the Colts? I guess
that's trickier. Yeah. Should mention here just some news. Pittsburgh signing Ade Ogundeji to the practice squad, and also Craig Young, linebacker Craig Young, to the practice squad. So filling up those two spots. Ogundeji does essentially revert to the practice squad, and Pittsburgh signing some additional linebacker help.
All right.
So yeah, is there anything else? Any other threads to pull here? This is a risk from Tomlin. I mean, this is certainly
sure.
If it goes well, then great. But if it goes about the same or worse, then Tomlin is going to receive a ton of heat, as he should. He's going to own this decision. The quote unquote safe thing would have been to stick with Justin Fields, because you're 4-2. Fields is not playing so offensively that it's obvious he's got to be benched, and you got to make a change here. The safe thing would have been to just say, hey, we're 4-2. Fields is playing competent football. He's taking care of the football. We're winning. We're playing our style. We're going to just status quo. But to make the change is going to come with risk, because it really can't even be just the same. It's probably going to be like marketably better from Wilson than it is with Fields to kind of justify making this change.
Yeah, this is a big decision, and you got a lot of the talking heads, Dan Orlovsky, and I mean several of them are thinking, why are you doing this? They're very against the move, and I get it, but I do think it's worth the risk, and could it potentially look, if you drop as good as this team has been to this point, and we talked before the season during the bye, ahead of the bye, there's several winnable games in this thing, and you got to make hay in here. Now, look, injuries around the league have kind of, and what the Browns have done is and it does it every year. That's why it's so hard to do predictions at the beginning of the season, because so much stuff happens and all like that. The Browns don't look like they're going to be, that but it'll still be division of games and all like that. You got to make hay. I mean, what happens if you go to Russell Wilson these next 2 weeks and for whatever reason, even if it's not, thoroughly on him, what happens if you lose both these games, and you go into the bye week with a, what would that be? Your
4-4.
Right, 4-4. I mean, you want to talk about the blowback from that decision then. Well, see, if we would have had Fields and, not been so risk adverse and, just relied on what we know he can do and the X factor with the legs, probably would have won 1 or 2 of those games, yada, yada. I mean, it is a big decision to make, especially with the record that you have and the kind of the feeling that, it's been good enough, with the quarterback position, with several fans thinking, well, he's done enough and we can build on that,
And maybe that's the reason for the change, to kind of come off of my football justice mentality argument from a football standpoint. I was asked a really interesting question Monday. I want to get your input on this too, Dave, during our live stream we do every other Monday on YouTube. Essentially, this summarize and paraphrase the question. It was, is this team really different than last year in the sense of they're still a rock fight kind of team, run the ball, win the low scoring game, play great defense, special teams, etc. And if that's the case, where you're going to get different results, where you're going to get a team that could win a playoff game. That's been their bugaboo. They can get in the playoffs. They can be in the hunt. They get in the wild card round. They get blown out because they just can't score. They fall behind. They dig themselves incredible holes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is the thought we're getting kind of the same for Fields, and we know where that story ends. And so we have to try to do something different to hopefully get more than what we have been getting this year in the past 2 seasons.
I mean, I just roll back to that quote that I just gave you again. I think that's where they're at. I think they think it's okay, but is it good enough to make hay once if they get into the tournament? Can they score more points against some of these better teams? And I really think that the most pertinent line that Mike Tomlin delivered on Tuesday is, we're trying to position ourselves to be that team, and we've got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. I think that is probably the biggest quote from him yesterday.
I agree. No, I think that is a central way to look at it. And I do think from a football standpoint, the overall track of where this team is at, generally being the same. They're a better offense, I would say, than last year. They're more competent offense. They're more organized, and hopefully they can continue to trend upward. And they've had O-line injuries that have impacted them that they did not have to deal with last year. And so each situation is different. So I'm kind of making a broader comparison than direct one-to-one, but I think that's the general line of thinking. The other concern, though, with Wilson is just we haven't seen much of Russell Wilson. His last game that he played was December 24th of 2023, and he barely got work in training camp. Got a little work in the preseason. He's got to catch a moving train himself, and it's easier for a veteran like him. There's a known element in quantity to him, but I mean, he's got to get chemistry down. He's got to get timing down. He's got to get just kind of some general rust off and getting out there on the field in a regular season environment and going against a defense that's been playing good football and has been doing it for the entire season. So you worry about that aspect too, of him trying to do this on the fly.
Yeah, you do worry about and he was asked about this, knocking, how do you go about knocking the rust off with Russell Wilson short of getting him into a game? He says you knock it off to a degree, just getting the in-helmet perspective on the work. There's one thing to sit in meetings, blah, 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 digest. But there is also a he's relying, I feel Mike Tomlin is relying on the totality of his, and he said it, we're relying on the totality of his resume as well. That makes you more comfortable than guys with shorter resumes in that regard, in terms of the ability to play ball on a limited amount of exposure. He says, I had a mentality about guys across positions, and we've had that discussion before with veteran players. There's just comfort that comes with experience and some of those really sometimes uncomfortable discussions. And you wrote about what Bill Belichick said last night from that podcast that he was on and on as well. And even Belichick said, "Look, this is a guy that even though he played in the preseason, it's been a lot of time since he played in the preseason, and in totality, he didn't play a lot in the preseason. So there is that aspect of wondering this far into the season." We're likely to see some rust at the start while he knocks it off, regardless of the experience and the in-helmet experience that he has throughout his entire career. But that's not going to be good enough for fans too either. You come out with 2, 3 and outs right away with run, pass, or whatever it looks like. People are going to be irate and say, "Look, at least Justin was able to drive us down for a couple of field goals. Not the fastest starts, but see, this is already not working out."
And I'm talking rust, not even for the opening drive, but the opening first game or two, just from all the new situations you might get into throughout those first couple games. About 2 minutes, you may not get it in the first half of the first game, you may get it in the second game, and just chemistry on this call. We haven't run this play, or how does the receiver like to run this route, and those kinds of things that you just kind of learn by doing and learn by a little bit of trial and error that hopefully takes place in training camp and the preseason that you work on and have it all figured out by the regular season. So, with the fans, they're right. Rust cannot be an excuse. I mean, it'll be a reason. And if Russell does struggle, I think Tomlin will talk about that, but there's no time for work it out. Like they gotta go. We're 4-2. We're in this thing, and we got to be able to put this thing together and start fast and not have to wait 3 games for Wilson to find his groove and get into rhythm. And losing games while doing that, it's not going to be acceptable. So I do worry about that, because there's certainly going to be some of that, I think, that occurs for a guy that just has not worked with his teammates that much because of the injury. And naturally there's going to be some growing pains that come along with that. And so you hope you can deal with those growing pains while you win, but of course, the more growing pains you have, the less likely it is that you win.
Look, all I'll say is, as far as giving a firm opinion on this, is what I said. I think this is the right decision. I'm interested to see how it goes. I am not emphatic with thinking that I'm going to sit here and say I'm not going to try to smooth it all over and say everything's going to be fine here. They're going to get exactly what they're looking for, but I do think they owe it to themselves, based on what we've seen from Justin Fields so far, to explore what maybe Russell Wilson can provide for this offense, because I think schematically, for the most part, it's been fine by what Arthur Smith's been calling. I think Arthur Smith would like to unlock more of the play action. I think Arthur Smith would like to unlock more of the quick game. And look, a lot of people will push back. Well, look what Russell Wilson did last year with the yard with the throws behind the line of scrimmage and all those throws. Yes, I mean, if we get in a situation where the passing chart looks very similar to Justin Fields, outside of maybe 3 more deeper balls down the field, only one of which is completed, then what have you really solved there, right? Especially if the running game doesn't get even more teeth on it there. But and what if the sacks go up, and what if Russell Wilson tries that YOLO ball and make some bonehead plays? Yeah, there are reasons absolutely to be concerned, but you don't know until you know.
Yeah, just to give my kind of summation of my thoughts here, as I said on Monday, I would have gone with Justin Fields. And so I guess you could say that's me saying it's the wrong decision, although I was light to use the kind of election poll term. I was within the margin of error on my thoughts of who this team should start, leaning Fields, but it was not emphatic, slam dunk, clear and obvious. And I'll just say,
but our listeners don't like us to do that, though, because they want more definitive of our opinions on that. That way they can hang us or praise us for them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, just to be clear, I said I would have gone with Justin Fields. So just to put that out there, and we'll see what happens. So there is risk, there is reward. I mean, I'll just say 2 more things. A, and I don't know this, but I think Arthur Smith really wanted this team to stick with Justin Fields. I think he's really been excited about Fields and getting to kind of grow him. I think he's had fun with his career, kind of taking miscast and outcast first round picks, Ryan Tannehill, Fields, and making them into better quarterbacks, unlocking the potential that got them drafted as high as they did. He's really spoken up highly of Fields, and I'm sure he'll do the same about Russell. But I think he really has been a big fan of Justin Fields, and so I wonder what he's thinking today. Two, I would say, and you touched on this, and we talked about this Monday some, with Russ being the starter, these receivers got to step up. These receivers have to make some plays because Russ is not going to have the hidden element, the X factor element that you talk about of Fields' mobility. He's going to have to play from the pocket and trust these guys to step up. And these receivers got to be able to make more plays. Pickens, in particular, has to, I think, do a better job and step up and be the guy that he certainly has shown the capability of being. So there's going to be more onus on these receivers to win in contested situations more, because the pass game is going to be where Wilson makes almost all of his hay.
Yeah, and look, you're changing one variable at quarterback, but you're not changing any variables with the talent around them.
Yeah, and an offensive line that's hurting. I think I will say I think the O-line has overall protected well the last 2 weeks in the pass game, but without Zach Frazier and facing I think a better and stronger front than what the wounded Cowboys had, and even what the Raiders had, where they had Crosby and not much else. It's going to be tested. So the offensive line issues does not sway my decision in terms of who should start a quarterback. To me, that's just a purely quarterback situation. Who is the best quarterback for our team? I think the pass protection has been better, but I think it will certainly be tested against the Jets minus Zach Frazier.
All right, let's add the other element to all this. Mike Tomlin was asked, is there a scenario where you utilize both quarterbacks on Sunday night? He says, certainly there's a scenario. That could have been a scenario that could have occurred last week. I don't understand.
That caught my attention. I thought, I don't know, but I thought he was saying like Russ almost came in and replaced Justin after that interception, was kind of where I thought he was going with that comment.
Yeah, I haven't considered. I didn't really consider that, but that statement did catch my eye.
Because what else could it have meant? Was there a situational package for Russell, or was he just saying like Fields could have gotten hurt and then Russ could have gone in just because natural things?
Yeah, all I can say is that sentence caught my eye. Yeah. If he would have just said certainly there's a scenario, and then omitted that next part. And then said, I probably hadn't thought about it in that way as you stated, but really we're just going to roll the ball out, let both guys work and make decisions from there. All of that aside, if Russell Wilson indeed does start against the Jets, I do think that they should have plays or maybe a series or whatever to get Justin Fields. And that rolls back to way back before the season started, where before the calf injury, where we thought, okay, if Russell's going to be the starter, we thought that there should be packages that Justin Fields be on the field, or at least plays situations where he should be on the field, and I think that should be the case if indeed they roll with Russell Wilson on Sunday night against the Jets.
No, I agree. As you said, we're back to kind of the pre-week one conversations. I think they should. I think they will. And it's only been more justified to do that by seeing the success that Fields has had in some of those situational moments and the overall lack of success the traditional running game has had. So, yeah, I do think, I think Wilson will start. I don't have much doubt about that. But I also equally don't have much doubt that we'll see Fields in some form or fashion. Again, some of that is circumstantial based on game situation, depending on what short yardage situations you're in. And so it's hard to really guarantee how many snaps he'll play and all that kind of stuff. But I do think for as long as Wilson is the starter, we'll see Fields to some degree of situational moments.
All right, we got to start wrapping up all this quarterback and Mike Tomlin talk. What is your biggest fear about Russell Wilson starting?
The rust. Just the unknown. We just don't know much about Russell Wilson as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I know he's got a lengthy resume and what he did in Denver and his entire career, but it just you're playing a quarterback who has barely played midway through a season, and there's going to be a cost to that. There's going to be a consequence to that, and hopefully there's more good than bad, and hopefully you can work it out over time. And after a month, the rust is knocked off, and you're rolling along, and you're good to go for that really tough AFC North gauntlet. But the risk is just the great unknown.
Right. And isn't that where probably most of the fans are coming from? The known versus the unknown.
Well, that I also
and the
think
record and the ability of maybe Fields of potentially becoming a guy they could tie their wagon to for future years. Yada
yeah,
yada.
I think all of the above. I think the main argument that I would just to kind of sum up from the fan base is Fields has played well enough to start, and the team is winning. And why change that? I think it's the biggest gripe that fans have, and that is justifiable. It is certainly a fair point to make, and we'll see how it plays out.
Right. Okay. What else from Mike Tomlin? Anything else?
The Ryan McCollum comments hit a little differently when you go from all the quarterback talk to the center situation. But Tomlin did express a lot of confidence in McCollum, who's been with the team for 2.5 years now, has a bit of NFL experience, and I thought played pretty decently after Frazier got hurt against the Raiders. So again, confirming that McCollum will be the guy.
Yeah, I thought he played when he came in. Look, I mean, they got that big run from Najee first play of his in the game. I thought he represented himself well, but it'll certainly be a different task for him this week.
Yeah, against Quinn Williams, it's going to be big change here. Yeah, so another element too. It's new quarterback, new center. They're working practice, obviously. Look at a bunch of reps there. No excuses on Sunday night, but you got new quarterback and new center in there as well.
All right. I think we got the meat of it, didn't we? There.
From Tomlin, yeah. I mean, there was some other smaller stuff, but that is going to be. It was a quarterback-driven press conference, as it should have been.
All right. What stuck out on the tape more?
You're saying offense or defense, or just anything?
Just in general, because I mean we're going to run a little bit long on this anyway. I tell you what stuck out with me. I tried to put more of an eye on McCormick, and I think if he cleans up some of the pass protection things, some of the stuff and things like that, I thought he was really good in the run game. I thought there were some things that maybe he needs to clean up in pass protection, widen up that base, use the hand, get the hands using a little bit more. But for the time now he's spent at right guard, I think he has the ability, at least what I've seen so far, to become a very good guard in this league.
Yeah, he's got all the traits. He's strong. He's got a good punch. He refits his hands, has a good anchor, plays with good technique. The on-body pass sets have not really been an issue with him. He's not lost as often. He got his hand swiped away once and lost one rep. But yeah, overall, I think McCormick has played well. I thought Dan Moore Jr. had a really good game. I thought Broderick Jones really struggled. His punch continues to be all over the place, and just some mental errors, and just pretty sloppy overall.
I thought the tight end blocking could have been better in this game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything in particular that stuck out. I know some of the grades weren't great. There were some penalties there. Yeah, probably could have been a bit better. I think Pittsburgh struggles more against some of those 4-3 fronts and those 5-2 fronts, where those tight ends have to sometimes block some bigger ends than 3-4 outside linebackers.
And I think Fields, as I mentioned a couple of times, left a couple of plays out on the field. A couple of guys that he could have hit there. So I thought Najee ran extremely hard in this game. That long touchdown, I mean, Bob Spillane almost blew that up, and he sidestepped him, and it was good, a lot of good yards after first contact within that. It was good to see the running game. Even Jaylen Warren had a couple nice runs. I think one of them was kind of on a skip pull from McCormick right to left there. It'd be good to get a fully healthy Jaylen Warren back. Look, you see the way the Buffalo Bills ran that ball down the throat of the Jets early in that game. That's what they're going to have to do in this game, I think, against the Jets. You got to establish that running game early and then hopefully build play action off of it. But I thought the running game as a whole looked pretty good. I was happy with the blocking on that. Justin obviously made a couple of plays with his legs, like that draw that they had in the game. Trying to think what else.
Well, I would just say on Najee, I mean, I agree he ran hard, but what was most interesting was that the quickness that he showed, juking that DB in space on that one long run that he had on the touchdown, like you said, juking and cutting back on Spillane. So I thought I saw some of the quickness and even just cutting back a little more decisively. There were some better holes to, I think, be able to give him that opportunity. But I thought it was interesting to kind of see some of the explosiveness and the big playability from Harris, which has been atypical from his kind of barrel ahead and churn forward, which was still there, but it was good to see that extra element on top of that.
Right. All right. Defensively, anything stick out to you that we really didn't capture the other
Yeah,
day?
I think the story was basically the story that we had talked about Monday. Cam Hayward continues to play great football and welcomed Jackson Powers Johnson to the NFL. And so a really strong performance by him. If you care about PFF, he continues to be the number one defensive lineman in football right now. Cam Hayward does. And so just playing great ball overall. I thought Patrick Queen had a really good game. I thought the corners, I just thought, they played better team defense, fewer miscommunication issues. Still some stuff in the flat. It's got to get cleaned up where some guys, you buzz into the flat or am I taking deep, deep third? Still some miscommunication stuff there. Thought a nice bounce back game for Beanie Bishop Jr., just being a little more buttoned up. Good tackle on an RPO on Brock Bowers. So, yeah, just a pretty structurally sound defensive game.
Yeah, if they could get off to faster starts and not let get that first 3 and out or first 5 and out or whatnot, in games where they seem to be struggling most obviously is earlier in games, and it will we'll obviously get into this on Friday, but quite a different test that they're going to have against the Jets. Obviously, a more experienced quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, and I saw a stat from what was it? Cover? I forget who is it from here. Match Quarters. I think you subscribe to that too, don't you?
Is that like Cody Alexander? Is that
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got some great stats in here in his latest thing about middle of the field disguise and stuff like that. And the Steelers are ranked 31st in the league defensively when it comes to middle of the field disguise. So they're pretty much a static. What you see is what you get coverage. Thing.
So that says they're not disguising and rotating coverage as much. Is that what it indicates?
Right. The NFL average for coverage disguise has increased by about 4 points, he writes, from last year. The two outliers are the Saints and the Cowboys, but for different reasons. Dennis Allen wants to run cover one to keep offenses honest. He has incorporated more Tampa 2 coverages, which marry well with coverage disguise. And Dallas, he writes, Zimmer appears to have not added any new concepts to the last defense he called in Minnesota. The Cowboys are by far the most static defense in the NFL, with what you see is what you get. And he's got the Dallas is way down there at 7.8% of middle of the field disguise. And the next closest to them would be the Steelers at 16.8%. Ranked 31st, and leading the league looks like the Rams at 45.9% middle of the field disguise.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm curious about some of the methodology there, but anyway, so yeah, I just defense playing sound. Minka played well. Elliott had a good game. Dante Jackson again just talked about it throughout the season, but some big pickups in getting Dante Jackson and Deshaun Elliott. Those have been really valuable players. Not only just played solid football, but have created big plays as well.
And rolling back real quick, and I don't want to spend too much on it. I think one thing that has stuck out from me in watching some limited Jet stuff already is Aaron Rodgers will get that ball out quick most of the time. Now, when he holds, here's the thing too, when he holds on to it, he has gotten beaten around a little bit in some games, but I think for the most part, he tries to get that football out super quick.
Yeah, that's his MO. I think always been his game, but I don't have what is his snap to throw time? I'll look it up here. It's got to be among the quickest in football, I would assume. But yeah, that's going to be a challenge for this pass rush, trying to get to a guy that gets the ball out in 2.5 seconds or whatever. He gets 2.55. That is the 4th quickest in football. Only Tua, Baker, and Andy Dalton are quicker than Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
And then last thought, I had looked up the number last night. I forget the number off the top of my head, but on play action, I think Pittsburgh was they had 8 calls of play action, only completed 2 passes. They were sacked twice. And up until that 31-yard catch by Pickens at the end of the game, when the game was essentially over, I think Pittsburgh had 5 total yards off of play action. And that was including field scrambles. So it's just where most of their production was coming from. So I know I've harped on it so much, but for this team that wants to run a ton of play action under Arthur Smith, which we knew was going to be the case, they have been really, really ineffective and efficient on using play action to the point where they're really having just far less success using it than when they're just traditionally dropping back.
All right, we'll see if Russell Wilson, if he ends up starting, can help change that.
Yeah, that is going to be one of my hopes and goals for this offense is to have better play action under Russell Wilson. All right, Dave, big news of the day around the NFL, and this was coming out right before the Tomlin press conference, was Davante Adams has a new home. And the good news is that Davante Adams will be in Acrisure Stadium on Sunday. The bad news is it'll be for the Jets and not the Steelers, as Adams has been traded to the New York Jets for I think, conditional third-round pick that can become or fourth-round pick that can become a second-round pick. The Raiders did not retain any salary, but all that really matters is Adams will be a Jet, and the hamstring has magically healed. I loved your gif that you had about that on Twitter yesterday. The hamstring magically healing and should play against the Steelers on Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm sure that caught everybody by surprise that he got traded to the Jets, right, to reunite with Aaron Rodgers here, and a lot of Steeler fans frustrated, saying why couldn't the Steelers have done that on the surface, and then the report came out later in the day that Davante restructured his 2024 year to lower his cap number down. Now, look, he did not give any money back. I think people look at the cap number and think, well, he took a pay cut. No, what they did is they took a chunk of the base salary that they inherited from the Raiders. They turned it into a signing bonus. It sounds like they added even 2 more void years onto that to really extrapolate it out. So this becomes a 1-year rental unless at some point between now and the start of free agency, they are able to work down those other 2 remaining years. But at its core, right now on paper, this is a 1-year rental. The Raiders did not pick up any of the remaining salary, as you mentioned, and it sounds like it's a third that can go to a 2, right? Overall, I would have been shocked. Yeah, the only way the Steelers I thought were going to give up a 3 or a 2 or something like that was if they were to ahead of time be able to work out getting Davante to get those final 2 years worked down.
And the Jets really did not, right? This just seems like they're going to have to do something after the season.
That's my understanding, and that they're going to have options there, and I would imagine that Davante will make his decision based on what happens with Aaron Rodgers and yada yada. So, to my understanding, is his final 2 years have been left intact, and it's more of let's see what happens with this team over the course of the remaining games, and then attack it that after the season is over.
Yeah, I think what you said is pertinent. Where I think the Jets are calculating that Rodgers will return and Adams will want to re-sign based on Rodgers returning for 2025.
Right. So, I mean, and until any of that happens, it's a half a year rental,
So where does this leave the Steelers? Missed on Ayuk, missed on Davante Adams. Where does Pittsburgh go from here? Is this just going to roll with the group? Are there other options? Those were the 2 biggest names, the 2 most obvious names, the 2 most shop names, and the 2 names who will not be Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think you just keep calling. My gut tells me that we will still see this team bring in somebody else before the trade deadline. Now, obviously, the corresponding story to Adams to the Jets is what's going to happen with Mike Williams. I think that is very plausible as long as they're not asking too much. You could definitely make the Mike Williams remaining salary work.
And they're going to give that guy away. He's going to cost literally nothing.
Right. And this is a guy that the Steelers were set to bring in for a visit, right?
Yeah, coming off that ACL tear last year, he had a visit scheduled with the Steelers and never got to Pittsburgh because he signed with the Jets on his visit that occurred first.
All right, is it going to happen between now and Sunday, especially with the Steelers playing the Jets? I would bet not. But if you get past this week, and I think it's definitely plausible. The contract can be worked around. If the compensation is something like a 6, or if you're swapping a 5th and a 6, or a 7th and a 6, or something like that, there might be other teams in play here, right? But it feels like Mike Williams has fallen out of favor with the Jets, and it would feel like maybe they would. Now's the time for them to move him on down the road in the next couple of weeks. I don't think it'll happen this week, but I think it could potentially happen after this week with him. So that's one option. A lot of people have thrown Hopkins' name around with the Titans. That gets a little bit more trickier, I think, with that contract there, because I think he's got some incentives mixed in there, along with a base salary, and obviously a little bit older. All in all, I think when you look at the contract, though, if that's the Steelers, if they didn't have to give away a lot to get him, and let's say they could even get the Titans to eat a little bit of that remaining salary, I think that's plausible when it comes to Hopkins overall. So yeah, I think it's something that you would definitely want to maybe potentially call on. Yeah, he's up in age as well, too. You have to wonder how much he has left. But in the end, I think it's a call that you probably have to make. We'll see what happens over there with Denver and Cortland Sutton between now and the trade deadline. If Denver loses a couple of games, and let's say Russ is doing some things in Pittsburgh, and you want to reunite those two. Obviously, the dot connecting has been there all off season there, and you could definitely, I think, make that contract work as well too. And not only that, I think he's under contract for the next year or two after that. So that would be very appeasing. But I mean, if Denver comes out and plays well, these next couple of games are still in it. Why would they trade him? There. So I think those are potentially the three biggest names to watch. It doesn't sound like, it's easy to roll back and us talk about DK Metcalf, but you have to think that the Seahawks are going to be in this thing, right? So I would think that would be, more plausible, just because I expect Seattle to be in this thing and not want to part ways with them. But those would be, I guess, the three names that are easy to throw out there and easy to connect the dots that would be plausible for the Steelers to go after.
And the Jaguars, Christian Kirk has been talked about a lot. I think that's less likely because of the contract situation there. But the Jaguars, their season's over. They could be sellers. They're already selling some pieces. I get the connection there would be a more longer term and better talent than somebody like a Mike Williams. Williams is not going to be a Jet here for much longer. I can't imagine he's the number 4 receiver right now behind now Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and Alan Lazard. So he's going to be gone. Just a question of where he ends up. Certainly would make sense. The question is, though, how much does it help you to get a Mike Williams? How much juice does he have left? He's not been productive this year. Right. Can he separate coming off the ACL tear last year? It's a fair question. I think Hopkins is the one that really makes a lot of sense. I've talked about that for a while now. Tomlin loves DeAndre Hopkins, has always talked highly of him. I know he's older. He's 32, had an MCL issue earlier this year. Can he separate? The metrics do suggest he's getting more separation than you might think, but I do think it's not really his game. He's a contested catch, physical, out jump you, out muscly kind of guy, but that would play well with the moonball mentality that Russell Wilson has. You throw some deep balls to Pickens and Hopkins, you can't double team both of those guys. Right. You trust those guys in one-on-one situations. I'd also just mention some lower level names that are, I think, less likely, but just to throw some different names out there. Nick Westbrook-Akini from Tennessee, who Arthur Smith coached in 2020 as the OC there. Smith's been a big fan of him. He's got size. He can block. He's been productive in past years. Has barely played this year. Did catch a touchdown last week, but would be dirt cheap to acquire. And then again, these are not needle movers, but other ones to mention. David Moore in Carolina has a good relationship with Russell Wilson. They were teammates in Seattle. He was productive years back. And Cedric Wilson Jr. from the Saints, a height, weight, speed guy, the son of a former Steeler, Cedric Wilson. Again, those are less likely, but those some different names out there you might not have heard before. Mention those as well. But I think Hopkins is the one. Williams too, because it makes sense. But I think Hopkins is one Pittsburgh could really plausibly target.
Does your guts tell you that they're going to still add to that room via a trade?
My gut has said yes this entire time. So far, it's been wrong. But yeah, I think yes, especially with Russ at quarterback and knowing how much even more important the receivers are to helping Russ play because the run element isn't no longer there for another hidden weapon for this offense. So, you can't wave a magic wand and get these deals done, as we've clearly seen with Adams and with Brandon Ayuk. But short answer, I do think they had somebody before the deadline.
I do as well too, and I've felt that way all along. Now it might be another couple of weeks, but I think they still. You got to make the calls. I'll tell you that.
Who is more likely to become I'll do the Rich Eisen thing. Who is more likely to become a Pittsburgh Steeler, Mike Williams or DeAndre Hopkins?
It feels like Mike Williams.
It does from the sense of like he's definitely gone. The Titans could conceivably hold on to Hopkins, but I'm not even sure why they would. Their season's not going anywhere. He's 32. I mean, I think he's under contract next year, but he's not going to probably return. So I'll say D-Hop.
Okay.
I just want to read off quickly what Tomlin said about D-Hop last year when Pittsburgh was going to play the Titans ahead of Week 9. Said, quote, D-Hop's always open. His catch radius, his strong hands, and his ability to high point the ball makes that a true statement. Obviously, we got to be conscious of one-on-one circumstances with him. That was really Porter's coming out party, shadowing him and taking him away in the second after that win over Tennessee. So I know Tomlin has always been a big DeAndre Hopkins fan.
All right, and Amari Cooper going to the Bills.
Yeah, that was some rumors about Cooper for a while now. They reworked his contract, but they got good value. But they traded a 5th-round pick for him a couple years back and got a 3rd-round pick for him. So he's appreciating, which is you don't see too often. But the Browns are, I think, packing in the season.
Yeah, and it was unlikely anyway that the Browns were going to trade him within division. I mean, they could if they had the right offer, but it probably would have had to been a better offer than what the Bills gave him.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised that Cooper was not going to come to Pittsburgh there. So we'll see what other receivers get moved.
All right. What else do we have to talk about today?
I think that's about it. If you have anything else, Dave, feel free. If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right. Bryce wants to know, after 6 games with all the trade moves and injuries, how would you currently rank the quarterback and wide receiver rooms in the AFC North? The wide receiver room needs help now. We've said that right from the get-go. I think Cincinnati's receiver group's obviously better. I think Baltimore's receiving group is better in totality. The Browns just traded. Who do the Browns have left now?
Jerry Jeudy is going to be their number 1, Cedric Tillman, and then it kind of gets, I think, ugly from there.
Yeah, I mean, does having George Pickens at least trump what's left of that room now?
Yeah, I would say so. I'll agree with you on that, Dave.
All right. And what about the cornerback rooms?
The quarterback or the corner?
Cornerback rooms.
I'd have to look at the depth chart. I don't even have the whole thing on top of my head here, to be honest with you.
I mean, look, I'll say this: Porter and Jackson. I mean, I suppose you got to throw Beanie in there if you're talking about that room, and if you're talking about depth, with James Pierre. It's good. It's not great as far if you go on top to bottom. Beanie Bishop. Look, Aaron Rodgers knows who Beanie Bishop is right now.
Oh yeah, they'll be targeting him a ton this game for sure. Yeah, I mean, I probably still put Baltimore 1. I think Cleveland has always had more talent, but I don't know if they've been playing up to that talent this year. So I really just haven't watched them enough to be able to judge that well. I'll probably put the Bengals last. So I don't know if I go corners, just top of my head. Ravens, Browns, Steelers, and then Bengals, but don't hold me to that.
All right, he says, with Aaron Rodgers coming to town, is it time for the Steelers to dial up a lot more of those crossfire X and double blitzes to try to slow this guy down? I feel if he has time, then guys like Beanie Bishop are going to get their lunch handed to them. Here's the thing, and Mike Tomlin said it depends, who you face and who you think you're going to fool. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be ready for this defense. I think you just got to hope that I think the plan should be to rush 4, try to get home, because regardless, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to try to get the football out. If you try to blitz him, he's going to see it coming. He's going to get the football out, regardless. So I don't think dialing up more blitzes against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, at least in my mind, is going to be the plan of attack.
I mean, that's my initial thought, guys, to get the ball out quick and veteran good processors like him. You don't want to blitz, but do you want to sit back and let him pick you apart surgically? I mean, look what Minnesota did. How many blitz looks did they look at him and pick six him? That was your guy Ginkle who had that pick six off that real sim pressure look where he dropped out in the coverage, and he can't move that well. So I don't know. I mean, I get your point, and my first thought is, yeah, don't blitz this guy. But I look at what the Vikings did, and they made life tough on him.
If you get him in third and long, second and long, third and long, maybe you want to go after him. Make him get the ball out quick, and maybe you tackle the catch and yada yada.
Yeah, maybe some creative blitzes. I mean, they've not got a lot of corner blitzes. Beanie's not really been effective there, so I don't know. It'll be interesting. Obviously, though, you hope the front four and the healthy Alex Highsmith, or at least returning Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt to be the bulk of your pass rush.
All right, Alexander Campbell, not really happy with Wilson. He wants Fields over Wilson. He says the Steelers need to keep Fields in the starting role for several reasons. Yes, Wilson is historically a better passer, but the team needs to take other factors into consideration. First, with the only one good wide receiver, how much extra value are we really going to get out of this marginal difference? By the way, he says Fields' adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat this year is better than Russ's average over the last 2 years. He says he's just saying. More importantly, though, Fields' rushing this year has been so valuable and fits perfectly into our run-heavy system. Fields has accounted for 5 of the 6 rushing touchdowns and 17 first downs, while also having a better success percentage and yards per attempt than either of our top 2 backs. He is the most important and efficient cog of our offense, and benching him will gut the one area of success that we do have. Finally, he's 25 and the only possible long-term option on the team right now. He says, I'm not saying that Fields under center for the next 10 years is the best option in the world, but if you bench him right now, you're essentially taking the option off the table by saying he isn't starter material. That's I think predominantly what he's saying, kind of in totality, with maybe a few other things added in there, is why most of the fan base is along with Alexander of wanting Fields to stay in there over Wilson. But I don't think you can rubber stamp exactly what Russ has done over the last couple of years as the way it will look in the Steelers offense. Maybe it will be a rubber stamp. There should be a discernible difference if it's to be positive with Russell Wilson being able to push the football down the field, period. And as far as the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat has to be better than what it has been. If we get a static number, it doesn't get up over 6 and all like that, then you're probably playing the same rock fights.
Right. And losing out on the run game element that the reader mentioned, I think it's a great case to make for Justin Fields. I don't disagree with really anything that was said there. We'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, I would have stuck with Justin Fields for at least this Jets game and gone from there. I think, Dave, what you said Monday is the perfect phrase to judge and evaluate the decision. It's does the in-structure benefit of Wilson in the pass game outweigh the out-of-structure benefit of Fields plus the design quarterback run game of Fields? What is going to be the equation on that? Which one will weigh more? Will really dictate whether or not this was a good or bad move.
And look, to Fields' credit, he has made some nice plays out of structure. I mean, I think the best throw and the best play that he had in the passing game really was that out of structure and hitting Calvin Austin over there on the left side. Okay, he has exhibited some exciting plays out of structure. There are going to be times where Russell Wilson has to do that as well. I think, as far as true pass sets go, I think for Russell Wilson to run this offense effectively, they're going to have some design rollouts, right? Because you just can't you just can't drop them back. You can't have 30 true pass sets in this game, right? Or any game.
Yeah. To be clear, because we got some questions about this in the live stream Monday, Russ has what I call functional mobility. He can still functionally move. He can run the boots. And so schematically, from that standpoint, the offense won't change much. All the quarterback design run stuff will be gone, obviously, but like in terms of the pass concepts and getting under center and play action and boots, all those kinds of things, that's not going to change. And so there is enough mobility there for Russ. It's just obviously you're going to miss the design quarterback run game or the improvised run game where Max Crosby's rushing free off the edge and Fields escapes and turns a real negative into a positive. Those are things that Russ can't do. So I just want to be clear about where we stand on Russ and his mobility.
Bill writes in, I'm with Alex on the clear and obvious. It isn't clear and obvious that Russ is the answer. True, the pass game isn't where we want it, and there has been some regression the last 2 weeks. All of that is true, but it is also true that we are 4-2. He isn't turning the ball over, and he has scored 10 TDs in the last 5 weeks. Also, he single-handedly almost brought us back against the Colts and did bring us all the way back against the Cowboys. While Russ may make decisions quicker and better, he won't make Pickens catch the ball. He won't make other receivers get open and won't create with his legs. The only reason to start Russ for me is to give him these next 2 games to see what you have and then make a final decision during the bye week and go forward with that. If that is the plan, then I guess I'm on board, I guess, he writes. I think if you combine that email back with the other one, that's the predominant pushback that you get from the fan base, and it is understandable.
Yeah, no, it is. I think I wonder if the team's argument is the run game will be helped by Wilson's pass game threat, where teams will have to respect that more. Now, is that going to be true? I don't know. And obviously, it depends on how Wilson plays. If the moon balls are working, then it play more too high. We'll see. But that's going to be a big question.
And roll back to what the key thing that you said you're going to be watching these next couple of weeks, the play action, right?
Yeah.
If this play action game can come alive and get some guys up the seams or just inside the numbers, that's going to be a big play. And look, here's the other thing. You've got to, whoever the quarterback is at any point moving forward, this team has got to do a better job of yards after the catch situations. Okay. These curls and these outs are something that we're all too familiar with at this time. Even some of the downfield passing, when they're caught, you're not seeing a lot of yards after the catch in this situation here. That's hidden yardage in this game that this team needs, and they need to get it more than just from their running backs. And we've seen Darnell get it, have some good yards after the catch and all like that. But regardless of who the quarterback is moving forward in these next few games, this team has got to be able to get the ball to wide receivers out in space, running to get more than 3.2 yards on average after the catch. Like to see that number up around 5 on average. Like to see one of these guys really, really bust one after the catch. So look, once again, I'm on board with this decision. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm not going to emphatically say, watch out, kind of things, but I think they owe it to themselves to see if Russell Wilson can help unlock more of this passing game.
And I do think play action could be the number one benefit. I think if there is a case to be made, it is that. I mean, even if you go back and watch the 4th down run for a touchdown that Fields had against the Raiders, which was a good play to make something out of nothing because it was covered. But there's no play fake. Fields does not even turn the right way to hand the ball off to Najee Harris. He turns opposite the way Najee's going. So right off of that, like everyone knows, okay, this is not a handoff to Najee Harris who are on 4th and 1. And that's probably the reason why it was so well defended by the Raiders DBs. They had sight and vision on that. This is not even close to a fake. And so I think Wilson will be more detailed in carrying out some really good play fakes.
Look, trust me, though, I will criticize Wilson if he does not play up to speed, and if there's not clear and noticeable difference, and Mike Tomlin's not going to hide behind the rust potential, so we shouldn't either. But there will be if they come out and only score 18, 20 points in this game, and it ends up being kind of the same rock fight, just maybe just a few things different, then there is going to be there's going to be a lot of pushback on Mike Tomlin saying, see, we told you, at least with Justin Fields, you had the mobility aspect and the X factor and all like that. I get all that, but I am emphatic with thinking that they at least owe it to themselves to find out what Russell Wilson can do in this offense.
And when you say owe it to themselves, you mean in the sense of what exactly?
What I've seen and what I think that Russell Wilson can do.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, then we'll see it. And again, I think I know you're saying this is not necessary. I know you're saying 2 games is the minimum, but I think we're talking 5-6 games where if you're going to make the switch back to Fields, it's not going to come until you start losing some AFC North ball. Like it's gonna be a while. I don't think you're gonna have a quick hook on Wilson because it's too back and forth. And I think Tomlin would say if he does struggle early, there's some rust and chemistry and timing. Not to excuse it, it's not. It shouldn't be. But I think that'll be the justification that Tomlin uses.
Okay. I'm not saying that it's going to go that way. I'm just saying you got to at least give him a minimum of 2 games.
Right. I'm just talking out loud. Like I expect Wilson to start just picking a number through like at least week 13. And then maybe if it's still bad after that, they would go bad. But you're gonna stick with this guy for a while.
All right, Rob Jones writes in, revisiting extension no one is talking about. Hi, David Knox. Just for fun at this point, what do you think Dan Moore Jr.'s price will be in 2025? Also, the Jack Rabbit will be one of the Steelers starting guards going forward. He is a beast, he says. Thanks again for all your work. Look, I was a little bit concerned, and I voiced, Mason McCormick, primarily a left guard, exclusively a left guard, really, if we're being honest, in college. You can't tell. There are a lot of good things I think with Mason McCormick that I've seen on tape so far. I'd like to see him get a little bit better on pass protection. It's a shame that he's going to have to work with a new center, this week, and you lose a little bit of that continuity aspect of it. And they definitely going to have their hands full with this front. But I have liked what I've seen so far out of Mason McCormick, and I think he very well could be a prime starting guard, at least from what I've seen so far. So I'm with Rob on that. Dan Moore Jr.'s market price. Once again, we got a long way to go here, but Dan Moore has played well so far. Let's see what at least over the cap has on a valuation of Dan.
It's going up. I'll say that much. His price tag is going up here. It's been a good season for him. It's been durable, available, left tackle, O-line tats out there for the market. Yeah,
they got him at 16, almost 16.5. Yeah.
That sounds about right. I know it sounds like a lot, and it is, but yeah, we're trending that way.
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps and look. Tackles that hit free agency get paid, right? Good.
Oh, yeah. Left tackles, especially. There's still a bit of discrepancy between right and left tackle, even though there shouldn't be, but left tackles get paid more, and we're certainly left tackle.
All right, Berkey right in, was listening to the Q&A, didn't finish, but heard you asked, rank the road crowds from Sunday's game. It was truly amazing. My 2 buddies and I were in section 133, which is in the Raider side, and it still ranks number 1 in my experience listed. He has Raiders number 1. It says it was off the charts, especially seeing TJ on 3rd and 12. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Number 2, he has Cowboys in 2008 at Texas Stadium win. Cowboys players complained in the paper the next day. That's his number 2. Number 3, the Raiders 2023 win. Number 4, Cowboys at AT&T win. Browns 2016 win. Titans 2001 win. He's been to a lot of road games. Texans 2005 win. Was that the Christmas? No, that wasn't the Christmas, was it?
No, it was 2017. 2005, okay. Was that the Troy? I think Troy was doing some Troy things that game.
Okay. Bears 2009 loss. Titans 2002 loss. Tommy Maddox injury game. Saints 2010 loss. That was the Halloween game, wasn't it? 2010 Saints game. Yeah. I had a colonoscopy. I remember that because I had a colonoscopy the next day, and I had to do the prep that night. I'm pretty sure that was the Halloween game. All right, Berkey, thanks for ranking those. Look, it goes without saying, you look good. Was more and more shots of the crowd and all come in. It seemed like a home game for sure. Let's get one more here from Luke. Love the show. Can't tell you how much I appreciate listening to your discussions. I'm sure there's been extensive talk and many emails about the rumored discussion to start Russ over Fields by now, so I'll keep it short. Russ may well be the better passer, but putting him over Fields places tremendous burden on the O-line that is already one of the worst pass blocking units in the league. How many of the Steelers Steelers drives do you think will be killed by sacks Sunday night? Not necessarily third down sacks, but on any down that puts the team behind the chains that they can't recover from. Would you go over or under at 40%? I'm not gonna. It's hard to get into that. I'll just say this: it is a concern. But once again, how many sacks? How many sacks has Fields taken so far, and what's that per average? And
Right.
a few of those have been brutal. And obviously, people are worried about the offensive line and Russ's totality of mobility. And will Russ hang in there and take a couple of more sacks? If we're coming out of this game and Russell Wilson's been sacked 3, 4, 5 times, then concerns will be verified, especially if they end up being drive killers. So this is obvious a concern that fans have. It's a legitimate one. I think you've got to put the onus at least early on getting this run game going, getting this play action going, and getting the football out of Russell Wilson's hand quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm, like I said, a little less. It's not that I'm not concerned about the pass protection. I just think they've done a better job the last 2 weeks, but you lose Zach Frazier to that equation, it becomes even tougher with a really good, I think, pass rush and really good front the Jets have there. So it's a lot of wait and see, and every mistake, everything will be certainly scrutinized when it comes to Mike Tomlin and Russell Wilson.
All right, we've gotten through a lot of these. We apologize if we have not gotten to your question. Resend it if you can, if you think it remains pertinent and all like that. We appreciate that, but we try to keep these kind of limited. We got other work going on at the same time that we got to get done as well too. So Alex and I will be back on Friday. We've got a beat. I don't want to jinx it. We got a beat writer lined up, but sometimes things happen. But at least we are tentatively scheduled to have a Jets beat writer on to help preview the game. We'll go over what the injury situation is with this team, if there are any other transactions, and just really start making headway to get ready for the Steelers hosting the Jets. The throwbacks.
Oh, yeah. We should have mentioned that. They're going to wear their 1970s and specifically 1974 throwbacks with the block numbers that everyone loves, the gray jerseys, but also gray face masks, which is really, really sharp.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting time for sure to see those uniforms busted out. I think they're 4-0 in those uniforms so far. And obviously the energy at Acrisure on Sunday night football. Hopefully there'll be no weather delay or anything like that. This time, Aaron Rodgers coming to town, Devontae Adams coming to town. A lot to be excited about. We'll start previewing that on the Friday show. So within all of that, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free. Follow the directions that way. Get yourself a username and password and log in to take advantage of the ad-free version of the site. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.